We love you!
Hello and welcome to Tribe Talk, the Galway Hurling podcast, with me, Patrick Earley, and David Connors, where each week we'll discuss and divulge all the goings-on in Galway Hurling. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the club scene and, of course, focusing on inter-county. In this, Shane O'Neill's first year at the helm, all of which we'll do in the company of some special guests and former Galway greats. So do come along and join us on Tribe Talk, Galway's dedicated hurling podcast.
So the Galway team has just been named there, Patrick. We jumped on straight away. Just named there at 9 o'clock. I suppose we'll run down to it first. Wexford tomorrow evening, so it's probably not a whole lot of time for Daithí to look through it and maybe pick out his matchups as much as he'd like. So, but we won't say any more. In goals, I suppose probably one of the big talking points is Éanna Murphy seems to have got the nod over James Scahill. Full back line is Sean Loftus, Daithí Burke, Aidan Hart. Half back line then is Pádraig Mannion, captain, Garage McInerney and Shane Cooney. Midfield duo, Cathal Mannion, Johnny Cohen. Half forward line then is Conor Cooney, Joe Kenning, Joseph Cooney, Brian Concannon is top of the right. Conor Whelan full forward, and Jason Flynn finishes off the 15. And I suppose then I'll just run down through the subs just so everyone is aware. Darren Morrissey, James Scahill, is the sub-keeper. Darren Morrissey, Jack Fitzpatrick, TJ Brennan, Adrian Toohey, Sean Linehan, Jack Grealish, David Burke, Ty Carran, Evan Island, and Niall Burke. I suppose first thoughts from yourself on the team. Yeah, it's an exciting looking lineup, if nothing else, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and kind of as we thought during the weekend, goes along fairly expected lines. Not too many major surprises. The couple of lads that we thought might get in and get debuts have gotten them. Shane Cooney's in there, Finton's in there, in Murphy in goal, which is which is good to see. Good to see a few lads getting an opportunity, because that's the way it's gone. You need to be blooding a couple of lads most years, year in year out. The likes of Kilkenny did it all the time when they were there around the turn of the decade, when they were winning All Ireland for fun. There was always one or two changes on the team every year. So I think it's good. It's good to see good bit of freshness to it. And what it means is that we have a bench that can come in and make a real impact, which this time of year attacks and playing a team that they'll train themselves, they'll train Galway as well in how they play, and great to have a strong bench like that to come in. So overall, happy with it. Just if that team goes out and performs like they can, they're well able to win this game for sure.
Yeah, it's just looking at the attack there, like it's a devastating looking attack now. I suppose where you could still make a case that there could be a few switches before throw in and stuff like that. Whether everyone will go straight out into the position they've been named is another question. But we'll probably, I suppose, we're probably best to just work off what we have in front of us here, rather than, I suppose, we can speculate a small bit. But it's a physically imposing attack. I suppose we'll start in the attack here first. It's a physically imposing attack. There's plenty of height, like that half forward line there. If they do line out like that between the two Cooneys and Joe Kenning, you can see them. There's a good chance they'll be able to win their own ball and away from restarts if Éanna Murphy does happen to go along.
Well, it takes pressure off Éanna Murphy in some respects, in that there's not, even though he will have the extra man in front of him, the pressure isn't there to go short all the time. Which the fact that he can go along and he has three target men like that, the two Cooneys and Joe to aim at in the half hour, it's a big plus for him. And also the Wexford sweeper, he won't really be getting involved in puck outs. He might be sleeping in behind to some degree, but in reality, if you're a half hour and the ball goes in over your head, you have not done your job. They should be at least breaking it forward back towards their own goal, if not winning the team themselves. So if they do that, it takes the sweeper out of the game, and kind of it's a 50-50 from there. And with the likes of those guys, and the couple of guys coming in, Cathal and Johnny Cohen, and even your two wing backs, Pádraig and Shane Cooney, pushing up, plenty of bodies there, well able to win their own ball. So I think it does take pressure off Éanna Murphy, but in saying that, when you have the extra man, you want to change it up as well, and not have Wexford expecting what's coming all the time, and we will play the sweeper the odd time for sure. No question about that.
Just speaking on the extra man, then I suppose there's probably two lads you could loosen up there if needs be. Like who do you think between say Loftus and Hart do you think is going to maybe take the man marking role, or maybe do you see them interchanging or switching it around, or how do you see that playing out? Because it's an interesting combo there, if nothing else, because they can both play the loose fair man if needs.
Like we the other night with Franny, like who would play the position, and when they're both named, you can't say for sure, but I'd be quite surprised if Loftus doesn't play the sweeper. The fact that he's named there, I think in terms of man marking, I definitely have heart at that over Loftus, just from a physicality standpoint and experience standpoint, going out against these lads used to it and well versed at it, and has had plenty of success against this Wexford team, like more than most other lads on the start 15. But like in fairness, we know Loftus has proven as a sweeper how he won his minor All Ireland as captain. Obviously much different level, but still that kind of knack and know-how as to how to play the position that doesn't go and that doesn't desert you. So and as well he's got good lads around him, and we know when he has the ball in his hand, he's excellent to play it out through the lines or to go along, whatever Galway will look to do. But the fact that he's there and probably going to play that role in my eyes, I'd imagine they will be playing a nice bit of short ball, because he's definitely one of the best short range stick passers in the county, no question about that, And you've seen that from his past experiences with the county and then with the club as well, in fairness. So it's an interesting one. What I'd love to be interesting is who, we're going to have it's going to be a two-man full-back line for us, really, with the sweeper there as well, whereas Wexford are going to have their 3 plus the 1. So there's a decision to be made there as to what two do you want to leave back there, and in fairness, a lot of it is going to depend as well on who Wexford have in there, because there's going to be matchups down here, no question about it on both sides,
Yeah.
If you have a Leach in there and a Connor MacDonald outside, it might change, or if it's the other way around, if Connor MacDonald is in there and Leach in is out in the half-hour line, they'll have plans in place for that, no question, So Finton's named 3, so you don't note full back tomorrow. It's kind of, you're going to have 2 full backs as such either side of the goals, so it means that there's more pressure in terms of foot races out to the corner flags, maybe, so that's something you have to take into account. Maybe he'll want an Aidan Hart back there just with his legs and his athleticism, alongside maybe a Finton, or wouldn't be surprised if Garrett ends up back there either, so these are all the things you have to decide, because when Daithí was there, and he was always one of the 2 in that full back line, and there was never a fear of that in a foot race, so it's another an interesting side note to it anyway, for sure. So decisions to be made there, but probably things that will evolve as the game goes on as well,
Yeah, it's going to be fierce interesting. That's one thing I find now. I'm really looking forward to seeing the way that they line up and who goes to who, because the game has gone so much these days. It's all matchups, really, isn't it? Really, you're not just you just don't go into the cornerback position and just wait there. You kind of see who's coming in first, and then you go towards him, really, more than anything else. But there's a huge amount of versatility there, is one thing I found, down to that team. But between the 6 backs, you could probably find them practically anywhere, really, over the course of the game. It'll probably be a case of them sticking with their men rather than maybe going into designated positions. But I suppose just in terms of the debutants, it's going to be a huge occasion for them. I suppose the lack of crowd will probably help in a sense. You know what I mean? There mightn't be as much pressure as they might normally feel, but I suppose if nothing we've noticed through the past, they're probably players that can cope, aren't they? Despite being relatively new on the scene, they're players that are showing they're probably more than capable of being able to cope with an occasion like this.
Absolutely, they're young, but certainly Shane Cooney be the oldest, 25 probably at this stage. The other 2 lads are just out of under 20, So, but in saying that, they're all hugely experienced, both at club level and then at underage inter-county level, and even the bit of exposure all 3 would have got during the league. We compare. We were talking about some of the lads that showed brilliant club form, that aren't included in the starting 15, and many of them didn't even make the squad. But the three debutants, in fairness, did get a nice bit of exposure during the league, which still, as we it's a different level, but it all adds up. Getting minutes in an inter-county jersey, no matter what level, it brings you on all the time, and that'll be worth a lot to them for sure. So I wouldn't be overly fearful of any of them, in fairness. Like, you know, and they're all, as you mentioned, like with Vincent and Shane in the backs, they both be very, very versatile, and wherever they are asked to play, they'll be fairly comfortable there. Like, you know, which is a great confidence booster, I suppose, for your management when you pick them. That, you know, that especially in this sort of a game where things are going to change and evolve a lot as the game goes on. Worried if he gets dragged from 3 or Shane gets dragged from 6 or wing back or wherever he starts, like, you know, and they'll be comfortable no matter where they are across the back 6.
And you touched on it at the start, and we'll leave it at this because we'll try and keep it short. But you alluded to at the start the strength of the bench, and you know what I mean. Like you have to say you have likes of All Ireland winners, say in Adrian Toohey and Daithí Burke there. Like then you have fine score like Niall Burke is there as well, should I say? But then you have lads who can come on and really make an impact on the scoreboard. You have Ty Carr, you have Evan Niall, and say you have Sean Linnell. But then you have a raft of defensive options as well, which is good. Like you've your Darren Morrisseys, your TJ Brennans, your Jack Fitzpatrick, even Jack Grealish. I'm really impressed with the bench we have, to be honest with you. It's probably been one of the strongest benches I think we've named in quite a while.
Definitely, no question about it. Like, you know, and we speculated about Edo and David Burke's injuries there the other night as to whether they'd make it or not. You know, the fact that they're named shows they're fit at least, which is a great confidence booster. So the fact they aren't starting is probably just down to not having enough done prior to the game, you know. But to have two lads like that, they're the first two names to jump off the page, obviously, like, you know, along with Niall Burke, in fairness, so we know, you know, himself and Jason Flynn were probably the main reason we won that Ireland back in 2017, the impact they made coming in off the bench, like, you know, and we know how effective he can be from there. But equally, as you mentioned, Ty Carr and Evan Ireland both scored well during the league, and two lads you know if you're throwing them in, and they're certainly, if the ball gets in their hand, it's only going one place anyway, that's for sure. Two of them are absolutely lethal. And in the back as well, you know, that's where you've got an awful youth to come in. Like Darren Morrissey, he comes across as an experienced sort of a head here compared to the lads beside him, which is kind of frightening. Like, you know, Jack Fitz and TJ, obviously two fantastic prospects, but have no championship experience. So be interesting to see, do they get thrown in at some stage, you know. Certainly two big physical lads that are well able to mind themselves out there for sure, and coming in off the back of excellent club campaigns. So, you know, the one obvious omission is Daithí Burke, who hasn't made it, and not even named in the 26. So that goes to show he compared to contrasting with Edo and David Burke, he just isn't fit. So we can forget about Daithí for this week anyhow. But in saying that, we're looking at the back 6 there and the lads to come in, you know, it's a strong unit, and they'll have the work cut out by all means. But saying that, you know, they're well able to cope, I'd imagine, and overall, Pierce happy with the team, you know. We could see Joseph Cooney going back there as well, like, we don't know. You'd be fairly happy to see him in either line anyhow, that's for sure, you know. So no, I think very, very positive, and a team that's well able to go out and get the job done, that's for sure.
Absolutely, you're like myself, you're as confident as ever. Sure, look, we'll wrap it up there. Just a quick show there, and please God, Galway can get over the line at the weekend, and we've a decent campaign to come. Patrick, thanks a million, and we'll chat soon.